Welcome back to SecretSpool's Feel Good Friday. I'm Tessa, and tonight's story is about the kind of quiet resilience that doesn't announce itself with grand gestures or dramatic declarations. It shows up in the daily moments when someone keeps going because stopping would mean letting go of a dream they've worked their whole life to build. This is the story of a cameraman whose entire world depended on steadiness, yet whose hands betrayed him for decades, until hope appeared in the most unexpected way. For as long as he could remember, Kirk loved the feeling of capturing life through a lens. His camera wasn't just a tool, it was a way of honoring the truth of the world around him. Over the years, he filmed world leaders, historic events, and moments that mattered to millions of viewers. But behind every shot, every smooth pan, every perfectly framed moment, there was a private struggle he worked tirelessly to hide. His hands never stopped shaking. The tremors began when he was just 16. Subtle at first, a small quiver that made holding a pencil feel a little odd. Doctors eventually identified the condition as essential tremor, a neurological disorder that affects millions of people, but is often misunderstood. They offered medications, reassurances, and hopeful strategies. But nothing ever truly quieted the shaking. Instead, it grew stronger with time, gradually weaving itself into every corner of his life. Kirk became an expert in hiding the tremors. He learned how to anchor his elbows against his ribs to steady his hands. He developed smooth transitions that masked sudden shakes. He even crafted jokes, small, harmless lines meant to make someone laugh while drawing attention away from the subtle movements he didn't want them to see. On the outside, he looked calm and capable. Only he knew how much each moment cost him. Co-workers often misread his tremors. Some thought he was just highly caffeinated. Others assumed he was naturally energetic or slightly nervous on busy news days. They didn't know his mind was constantly working, calculating every motion, planning every interaction, and hoping no one noticed how hard he was trying to keep his hands still. The mental strain, he once said, was as exhausting as the tremors themselves. As the years passed, the tremors became more intense. Holding a coffee cup required focus. Carrying equipment sometimes felt like navigating a tightrope. Steadying a microphone, once simple muscle memory, became a task that demanded every ounce of concentration he had. He never complained. He just found ways to keep going. But deep down, he feared that the career he cherished might someday slip out of reach. Then came the day everything shifted, not through a dramatic event, but through a moment so ordinary he almost missed it. Kirk was preparing for a routine interview, the kind he'd done thousands of times, when he met Dr. Mogen Hodai, a neurosurgeon known for her precision and compassion. As he reached forward to attach a microphone to her shirt, she paused, not out of discomfort, but because she noticed something others often overlooked. She looked at him and gently asked whether he knew what caused the tremor in his hands. He blinked, caught off guard. In just a few seconds, she had seen through the practiced techniques he'd perfected over decades. He explained his diagnosis, his long struggle, and the treatments that never truly helped. She listened carefully, then spoke 6 simple words that felt almost impossible to believe. "I think I can help you." Those words stayed with him long after the interview ended. Within 2 weeks, he found himself sitting in her office discussing something he had quietly stopped imagining. A real possibility of change. Dr. Hodai explained a treatment called deep brain stimulation. a highly specialized procedure that could calm the overactive signals causing his tremors. For the first time in decades, Kirk felt a spark of hope he barely recognized. The plan, she explained, was to place a tiny electrode, smaller than a grain of rice, into a precise area of his brain that coordinates movement. That electrode would connect to a pacemaker-like device implanted in his chest. Together, they would deliver gentle electrical pulses designed to soothe the misfiring nerves responsible for his shaking. It wasn't science fiction. It was real, proven, and surprisingly accessible to someone in his situation. On the morning of the surgery, Kirk felt a strange mixture of fear, gratitude, and cautious optimism. He was awake throughout the procedure, able to respond to the team while they worked with remarkable precision. They fitted a stabilizing brace around his skull and draped a blue sheet across the top of his head. Behind him, the surgeons moved with quiet confidence, guided by imaging and real-time data glowing softly on monitors. As the electrode advanced toward its target, Kirk heard a faint static sound through the monitors. It wasn't unpleasant, just unusual, like hearing a distant radio frequency that responded to the slightest movement. The closer the electrode came to the correct spot, the quieter the static became, as if the brain itself were guiding the team toward the exact location that needed help. And then, in a moment that felt both surreal and perfectly ordinary, the static disappeared completely. One of the doctors whispered, "Okay, we got it." Those words echoed in Kirk's mind. Something inside him shifted. He knew, without seeing anything, that something extraordinary had just happened deep within the quiet chambers of his brain. After the procedure, they asked him to lift his left hand. He raised it tentatively, half expecting the familiar tremor to ripple through his fingers. But it didn't. His hand remained perfectly still, steady, calm, and grounded in a way he hadn't felt since he was a teenager. The realization hit him softly at first. Then, with overwhelming clarity, his hand wasn't shaking. His right hand still trembled. That would be treated in a second surgery. But seeing one hand completely steady filled him with a relief so powerful he struggled to put it into words. For decades, he had adjusted every aspect of his life around a tremor he couldn't control. Now, for the first time in 30 years, he had a hand he could trust. He later described the moment they activated the device in his chest. He said it felt like his whole body exhaled after holding its breath for decades. Tension he didn't even know he was carrying melted away in seconds. It was as if someone had flipped a switch and returned a part of him he thought was gone forever. After the surgery, Kirk thanked Dr. Hodai with tears in his eyes. He told her she hadn't just helped his hands. She had saved his career, his passion, and a version of his life he wasn't ready to give up. The second surgery is already scheduled, and when it's complete, both hands may finally move through the world with the steadiness he always dreamed of. Later, when Kirk reflected on everything he had endured, he realized that the tremors had shaped far more than his physical movements. They had shaped his mindset, his habits, his relationship with perseverance itself. For years, he believed the shaking defined the limits of what he could accomplish, and in some ways, it dictated how small or careful he allowed himself to move through the world. Now, standing with his newly steady hand, he felt something he hadn't felt since he was a teenager, the sense that his future might be larger than the challenges he carried. He imagined everyday moments that once felt exhausting becoming effortless again, lifting a cup of coffee without concentration, adjusting camera equipment without fear, or simply reaching for something without calculating the angle of his wrist. More than anything, he felt grateful for the doctor who noticed what others overlooked, for the technology that unlocked a second chance, and for the reminder that hope doesn't always arrive with fanfare. Sometimes it walks quietly into the room during an ordinary workday and changes your life with a single sentence. I can help. Tonight's story is your reminder that hope can appear in the quietest moments. A routine workday, a passing conversation, a simple question asked at just the right time. Sometimes life gives us a second chance long after we've stopped expecting one. If this story inspired you, I'd love for you to like the video, subscribe, and join us again for more Feel Good Friday stories here on SecretSpool.